Hey, welcome here to the Montana Sportscast webcast as we get rolling here on an afternoon. Bob Ritterod, Paul Panisco. Bobby, how are you, my man?
Doing good, doing good. Made it through, made it through the holidays. How about you?
That's the same. We're through it and we're out the other side, and it seemed like everything on our side went well. So hopefully you had yourself a good Christmas and a good holiday, Bobby.
I did. Yep, it was a nice little break. Got a little basketball in between Christmas and New Year's. There, it's kind of hard on an old man to do 4 games a day when he's not used to it. But uh, I could actually talk at the end of it. I was kind of surprised. So.
Look at you go. Well, I'd be lying if I didn't say that. Like I miss just the pace of games. You know, when you get away from them and you get in the holiday break, that slowing down thing is a little hard for me. So I'm really happy that we're back to games and more importantly back to conference games. To be honest.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Paul. Everybody had some games, I think, between Christmas and New Year's, and pretty much everybody in the frontier came through there with winning games, and I guess, for lack of better words, confidence boosters for coming up tomorrow and Saturday, starting. Frontier Conference. Boy, I was just looking at the schedule, and I'm glad I'm sitting here talking to you in front of this camera, not trying to coach against all these other coaches today.
Oh, we talk about it all the time, and we're biased, that's for sure. But our level of coaches right now is such a high level, and we're going to start on the women's side as Coach Sayers will join us here in a little bit. But you look at the level of coaching that is done on the women's side, it's staggering. I mean, there are some incredibly good coaches. The Cactus Classic on the women's side went well. The
Yeah,
women that were down there played really well. Teams got some big wins. Coach Sayers and Carol, one of the teams that were not there, but they were in Florida, taking on some really high level opponents as well. But, hats off to like Coach Woolley and Coach Keller and the rest of the ladies that were in Arizona as the Frontier schools really made a pretty nice splash. And the one game, going back a couple of weeks, Bob, the one game you and I had circled to start that tournament on the women's side was the Western's opening game. And they went in and knocked off a powerhouse and really got that tournament started with an exclamation point.
and I think that was just a great tournament for the women. I think huge, huge builder nationally. I think it's going to show up in the polls coming down the road. Um, I don't think it has at this point yet, but I think it'll definitely show. And Providence and Carroll not there. And we'll talk a little bit about Carroll when Coach Rachelle Sayers gets on here. But they were successful as well
Yeah.
in their trip. They went to Florida, but yeah, they were pretty successful as well. So just the women's side, they're just reaching out and playing these tough teams around the nation, and it's just nothing but a big boost, I think, for the conference, and it's huge when it comes to those ratings, and I think that's why what we have 5 teams in the tournament last year.
Yep.
I believe we
Yep.
did. Yeah.
Yep.
So, and I think a lot of that goes back to these coaches going out and playing these tough teams.
I 100% agree. And I was looking, let me see if I have it. I was looking on the women's side, and I must have wrote it down somewhere where I didn't have it in front of me. But you look at Carroll. They have 4 losses on the year, and all four of those, 3 of those are to top 10 teams, and all 4 of them are to ranked teams. They've lost to the number 1 team in the country. Like, I believe it was number 5, number 7, and Southern Oregon, I think, is like 23. But I mean, you look at the level of talent these coaches are putting on their schedule, knowing that it's going to be good or it could be bad. But you've got to prepare for conference. You want to try and prepare beyond conference as well. And I'll tell you that is the one thing I really want to bring up with Coach Sayers is especially the last couple of years. Her scheduling is just been incredible. I mean, she has stacked up some of the best teams in the country to put her teams against, and it certainly has helped them.
Yeah, no, I'm going to throw there. Maybe I'll throw this up there. And look at the first two games they started out with Southern Oregon. And the University of Oregon, MSUB. I saw MSUB
Yeah,
play. They're a good team. They're
yeah,
really a good team this year. And then you just kind of go through this schedule that she has played. And hats off. She's got some travel money, I guess, because BYU played them in an exhibition down there. And
yeah.
the outcome's not that great, but boy, the experience that those kids learned from going down there and playing, is just huge. And
Well,
come back and they play LC. I always got to bring up LC.
yep.
They're rated number 13 in the nation. They lost to them 62-50, but I talked to Steve Keller a little bit after we went out there and played LC, and he said I watched those games. He said, he kind of felt like LC could have won it all if things went right.
Yep, and that's it's funny because we obviously always have a soft spot for LC with them being a conference member for the years they were, but that's what I continually hear. And this year we've had a ton of Frontier schools play LC, but yeah,
Yeah,
that Warrior program is really good this
yeah,
year, and they're one that's going to leave a mark over there on the left side of the coast.
yeah. I think they might be the real deal this year from what I'm
Yeah.
hearing. So, but
Well, and yeah, it's hard to argue we don't have some of that showing face here in the conference again. It's we get right back into the meat of this thing, and now we're on the slide to the end of the year. No more non-conference. We're just conference games from here on out, and then we start to look at the other important side is who you have at your place twice as opposed to what gym you're in twice that isn't your own, and some of those can be big factors deciding this thing.
oh, huge. We were talking a little bit about that, Coach Woolley and Coach Keller here on that tournament, that Green and Gold Classic they had, and I think Rocky goes to Western and to Carroll each twice this year, to where they were home twice last year. And that makes a big difference.
Big time.
So I guess maybe you call that the luck factor and how the scheduling goes. I don't know, but
Yep.
yeah, it's that definitely makes a difference. And well, I wish we could get away from playing each other 3 times.
Yeah, yeah. And that same token on the men's, we'll talk to Coach Adam Hyatt later in the program from Montana Tech, and that was one that played against them last year. Montana Tech and Carroll College had several battles last year. They played 3 times, obviously, during the regular season. 2 of those were in Helena, and each team won on their home floor. So, Carroll won both at home. That gave them the number 1 seed going into the tournament. And yeah, it's going to continue to play a factor this year, especially with the way the men's have started with nobody winning on the road yet.
Yeah, yeah, that'll be. We kind of talked about that. Is that going to change this week? And it's going to be interesting. One thing about it, everybody's in first place.
That's it. Yeah, it's real easy to write the conference standings. Just I was writing an article a bit ago, and I was going to list them all, and I'm like, no, everybody's just 1-1. That's just everybody's 1-1, and
Yeah,
uh, it's this year is going to be real interesting as we go. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be so important to get away from playing everybody 3 times. But for the time being, this is what we have. We're
yeah,
certainly growing as a football conference, but we are still, we're real thin as far as basketball goes. So we'll kind of see what the future holds for the Frontier Conference.
yeah. And I think that the men's on the men's side of thing, Paul, I think we maybe more balanced this year than we have in several years,
Yeah,
from top to bottom.
yeah,
I really do. I just think that Western and Rocky both playing very well. I just think that I think overall we're probably on the men's side more balanced than we have for several years. And on the women's side, I just it's just a dogfight every night. Seems like.
It is. Yeah. I'm 100% with you. And, you look at that men's side and it just shows with that idea that everybody is one at home. I think that's a great indicator of where we stand. And I don't think that's going to change much. I think we're going to have an absolute fight when every weekend is going to be. That idea of holding home is going to be huge. And if you're able to try and pick one or two up on the road is going to be a big deal. And, the women's side, we have two teams right now that are 0-2. And, you're looking at MSU Northern with head coach Chris Mowat. Certainly a guy that, everybody in this conference loves and a tremendous coach. They're not going to stay there. And then Montana Tech with head coach Jeff Graham, the new guy in town. He certainly has great roots in the Frontier Conference. And I think he played at every school in the Frontier when he played. Or at least gave them all a shot anyway. We'll give him a hard time about that. Maybe we'll get him on the air one day, but he's that team's coming together and they're not going to be a pushover. That's that first year is always going to be tough for every coach. And he is, he's taking his lumps here and there, but I'll tell you, the ladies are playing hard and they're, we talked about LC earlier. That was a game they could have won. They had a real shot against LC. So that, kind of gives you an indicator. This Tech team is one that right now they're 0-2, but they're going to come out and they're going to swing hard.
Yeah, that's for sure. And just got an email from Rochelle. She said she's tied up in a meeting. I don't know if she'll try to get on here in a bit. Anyway, Paul, but that's
Okay.
kind of where she was at. We were hoping to have her on here about 1:15, and unfortunately, those things happen.
They do.
They do. Things pop up, but no, I just let's take a look at the games coming up on Thursday, Paul. Rockies going to MSU Northern. Carroll will be at Tech. I think those are going to be some great games there, and then Providence at Western. And I sat here and I tried to pick a game of the week, and what do?
Yeah, truly. I mean, as we talk about the women's side of this, all three of those really could be very good ball games.
Yeah. I think Tech is just going to continually get better as the year goes on. I think, we talk about growing pains with players, and getting used to each other. And now you got a new coach in there. And, I think it's going to take a while for Coach Graham to adjust and also a little bit of time for those kids to adjust in what he wants to do and how he does things. And I just think that they're going to get better and better as the year goes on. And, they might be, Tech women may be the Western of football, in my opinion, this year. They could maybe not be in the top of this thing, but they could definitely be in the mix of mixing things up at the end.
I like that you bring that up because it almost feels like the ceiling is really high for a lot of these teams, in my opinion. It almost, it's impossible not to say that it isn't Carroll's to kind of lose, if you will. The Carroll women are tough. But that said, you look at Western, you look at Rocky, and you look at the rest of them as they go. I'm a fan of Coach Woolley. I like him as an individual. I like him as a coach. I thought what they did in Arizona was a big deal. I thought they went to Arizona and just put it together. Fitzgerald is one of my favorite players in the conference, maybe if not my favorite player in the conference. I think Brindley Fitzgerald is just a special athlete. They're a team that, they're sitting 13-2 overall, and you had better not ignore what they're able to do. Obviously, they came out of the gate with Carroll. They'll have them two more times. Those are going to be battles. They're at home this weekend hosting Providence. We'll see how, Providence was in Hawaii. They didn't go to Arizona this year. They went to Hawaii, had a couple games out on the, poor individuals. Arizona, probably a little too hot, a little too dry. So they decided to head out to the islands. Did Coach Himmelberger call and ask if you wanted to go?
No, he didn't. Yeah. Now that you mention it. And Coach Sayers didn't invite us to go to Florida either, but
No,
she did
no.
say that she did tell me in the email that the weather was really nice down there and it was hard to come back. But you get back to Western. I saw them play here, Paul, between Christmas and New Year's, and the Jordan Sweeney, the transfer he got out of Oakley, California. She's pretty tough.
Yeah.
She's a strong kid. Plays point guard. Sees the floor very well. I think she's going to really help that program down there for Western. Be a
Yeah.
good be a good
Yeah.
fit.
The doesn't it feel, and obviously I think it maybe it's only because I'm thinking about it in a historical sense, but doesn't it feel like right now is the way that the women's side of the conference goes that you almost have to have one of those almost D1 drop downs at point guard. I mean, it doesn't it feel like
Well,
to compete at the national level? I mean, that's certainly been the successful mold for our teams to this point. But you get a point guard that has the ability to shoot and also step back and knock down the three, but also dribble drive and not turn it over. That has been a big factor for a lot of our successful teams on the women's side of the frontier.
yeah, I definitely I agree with you. And I also think you have to have a big person. You got to have somebody that's tough inside. Uh,
Yeah.
Especially in our conference. I mean, we're big. I mean, everybody's got big kids. Uh, you know, maybe Western, maybe they got the King girl out of Big Timber. She's listed at 6'1". Starts for him, plays pretty well. Then
Yeah.
you got Pickens, you got Rooney. I'm not sure what they got up in Haber right now.
He
Not sure.
always has.
He's
It always
always
feels like he's got great post
yeah.
players.
And Rocky's big. They got three girls that are pretty good size. I think you have to have that point guard, like you say. That D1 drop down is always nice, but especially last year, I thought at the national tournament, I actually thought that it was more physical in Sioux City last year than it has been in the past. The
Okay.
tournaments that we had here.
Yeah.
In the post play, they let them play a little bit more, I thought. So, I think you definitely have to have the point guard, but I think you got to have a big girl too to compete. And I think you're going to have that big girl to compete in the frontier as well.
I agree. And fouls to give down there on the other side of it. When you're trying to body up a Jamie Pickens and keep her out of the paint, you better have some fouls to give. And having those fouls off the bench, if you have
Yeah,
15 to go through, that's going to help a lot of teams if you have that available.
yeah, yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure.
All right.
What do you think about Providence at Western on the women's side? I think that's going to be a bit dogfight.
That's one where, like, I look at it as like a barometer. I haven't seen Providence play, and I don't. I kind of have a feeling where I'm at with Western, so that's going to be a good one. And that's a tough place to play. I mean, all these gyms are, but going down to Dillon is not an easy joint. But that's going to be a big one. I mean, all these games are big on the road, but yeah, that could set up a real battle towards the top of this conference moving forward.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. And like I said earlier, I don't know how you pick a game of the week on Thursday or Saturday as far as that goes. I think probably Saturday's probably got to be Carroll at Rocky.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
That's definitely probably the game of the week on the women's side. But that was Providence at Tech on
On
Saturday.
Saturday. Yep.
That's what I got. So okay, Providence is on the road both games in.
Yep. And yeah, Tech is home Thursday, Saturday, and Northern is home Thursday, Saturday as well. So we'll see if that plays a factor, because there are certainly going to be long stretches on the road as well. But we'll see if the two games at home without, hopping on a bus will help those home teams out.
Yeah. And one more thing I want to throw out on the women's side before we jump to the men is Cheyenne Cross. Is that how you say her name at Northern? She was a player of the
Yeah.
week this week.
Okay.
And the men's player of the week is David Harris Williams out of Providence. And I think I sent you a text at
You did.
halftime. I think he had 6 or 7 threes at halftime in that game. And he, everything he threw up went in. I'll tell you what, that basket must have looked huge to him. But
Oh,
yeah, no, he put on a shooting exhibition that first half. He cooled off after that, but he was hot that first half. But
doesn't
jumping
it
into
feel
the
like?
go
Okay,
ahead.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Doesn't it feel like Coach Keller always has that guy? Like as long as I can remember, Coach Keller has always had that guy where if he gets hot, I don't care what you do, you're not stopping him. I don't.
Yeah,
I just don't care whether it's from half court, whether it's from 30 feet, whether whatever. He's had that guy that will absolutely get on fire and just scorch it. The other side of that coin is those guys can sometimes come out and just build a house, just brick
yeah.
after brick and just can't get it to go. But Coach Keller has always had great success with those guys that can just absolutely light it up.
All right, all the men, like we said, they're all in first place. All
They
15,
are.
or last, however you want to look at it. But so is kind of looking at the games on Thursday. Carroll's going to be at Tech, Providence at Western, Rocky at MSU Northern. I think definitely the game on tomorrow night's got to be Carroll at Tech. There's no
Yeah.
question about that. But the big question is the home team going to continue to win throughout Thursday night?
If you're asking me, I say the home teams all hold.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. We might get Northern. Rocky might get Northern. They're playing awful well, to be honest with you.
Okay.
It's I don't know. It's kind of the same thing. I just think I don't know.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
what's
it's
fun
going to be
about the
crazy.
frontier.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean that's the beauty of it. You look at these teams, and again, we talk about how well coached they are. They all. It feels like, I mean, both sides again, but the idea of how disciplined teams are and how not only how well coached they are, but how well they receive coaching. There's the other side of that coin. You can have a coach that is incredible, but if it's not landing, it doesn't do you any good. But it feels like, the right kids are always recruited and teams play team ball. And I think that's a huge factor. And yeah, I could be completely wrong. But especially Thursday, I think home teams hold.
yeah.
But I'm with you. And I'm partial, obviously, but I think Carroll Tech tomorrow is a big deal.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's definitely the game of the week. And kind of go back to the Cactus Classic down there. We talked to AD Charlie Gross from Carroll, and I think the men kind of took a hit down there.
Mhm.
They just played some tough teams. I
Yep.
don't think that we went down there and played bad. I think we just played some good competition. Uh, and I think there were some teams that matched up very well with some of our teams, and
Yep.
matchups are pretty important.
Yeah, and it's maybe it's a good wake up call. We certainly talk about how good our teams are on the men's side. They got beat up, they got roughed up down there.
Yeah,
And we
yeah,
talk about Tech Carroll, and certainly not pointing a finger at Carroll at all, but Carroll went down. They played 4 games in 4 days,
yeah,
and all of them were tough, and they lost all 4 of them. So
yeah,
I mean, you can see that snowball rolling pretty quickly if you come out and you just give it your all game one. You come up on the losing side, then the next day maybe your effort isn't quite the same, and you get beat up a little bit. If the physical nature is there, that's a tough road trip. For Carroll College, and we'll see how they respond with 4 straight losses. But again, I mean that's a murderer's row, man. You schedule 4 games in 4 days in Arizona. That you're putting yourself through the ringer, and any other analogy you want to pipe out there, man. That's a tough go.
yeah, yeah, for sure. How about Saturday? We got Western at Northern, Carroll at Rocky, Providence at Tech.
All right, so there I'll ask you. Go ahead. Do the home teams hold there?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, he just
It's
throws his hands up and walks away.
yeah. No, I think that we got to start looking at the upset things here. I just think that I just think, and I think a lot of difference is going to make on Saturday night is what happens Thursday.
Hmm.
You follow me?
Yep.
I just think that those Thursday games, there's a like Carroll Rocky game. If Rocky can go up there and beat Northern on Thursday, come back and play Carroll at home on Saturday afternoon, I think that they're going to have confidence that they can play with Carroll.
Agreed. And
And so I think just looking at it today, um, I would have to go with that first one, Western and Northern. Man, that's toss up. I'm going to go with Northern on it though. I think Western plays awful good, but
mhm.
being at Northern, I think go with Northern there. You'd have to go with Carroll over Rocky and Tech over Providence. As today goes. But like I say, I think it depends on how those games turn out on Thursday night.
I think the other thing that depends on is I feel like some of the gyms are going to be a little bit easier to play in right now as opposed to when school's back.
Yeah,
That's going to be a huge factor. You kind of have to look at those schools that I look at, like the Armory at MSU Northern, and they're going to have a crowd all the time. It doesn't matter if school's in or out, the Armory is going to be
right.
full.
Yeah.
So I think right now Northern's going to be a really tough place to play no matter what. Tech without students is a different deal than Tech with students. So, this is, if you're Carroll, you're happy with the timing on this one, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think Western's another one. They're a big one that thrives on energy of the crowd. And their fan base is loud. They're rabid. They get after it. But if they're not on campus, or thin, that's going to make a difference as well. So yeah, depending on when everybody goes back to school, that I think will make a big difference on how your student section looks too.
Well, and I'm going to tell you my thoughts on the student section. We go back to last year. We played Carroll for the tournament championship. I guess it would have been. Uh, I don't think either coach won that game. I don't think there was a girl on either team that won that game for Rocky, but I do think that football team did.
Yeah. Yep.
There's you got 120 guys jumping up and down, making noise. It's like the end zone at Hyper.
Yep.
It's the same thing.
Yep.
I interviewed Nick Hart the other day, and I typically when I interview a player, I say, okay, other than your home court, what court in the conference do you like to play at? And he says Tech, and I says, why Tech? He says, because I love all those guys down there, all those students down there at the end yelling and hollering and screaming at me. He says it just pumps you up. But that goes either way. But yeah, that's a big point, Paul. I hadn't. I knew that the students weren't back yet, but that's gonna make a difference. I
Yeah.
think, especially with Carroll and Tech.
Agreed.
I think that's you put it down to points. That could be a 4 or 5 point difference advantage for Carroll rather than having when the students are there.
Yeah. And everybody. I mean, everybody can agree that the best games you go to are the ones that are just nuts. When you have huge student sections. You talk about the women's championship. I go back to the men's. With Tech
Yeah,
Carroll at their place. I mean, that place was nuts. It
you
was
couldn't
just
even see the
insane.
game, could you?
No, and it was. The best part about, so obviously the game and the way it went down was incredible, and it's one of those games that if you haven't watched it, just go pull up the video. It's on YouTube. I was watching a little bit of it yesterday. It's still just insane. It was so well played and such a good game. But the part of it I'll always remember is, we go to Texas for the NAIA tournament, the two games to, from go to 64 to the single site. And we're sitting down there with the Texas people at Segu, and in Texas, and that we would have the game up, and they were down there watching it and, kind of making comments, and I was talking to their play-by-play guy. And every time they would watch the video, their eyes would just wander up to the crowd and get lost. Like they would just lose the game entirely and just pay attention to the crowd because they just don't see anything like that. And
Right.
I'm not saying we see that kind of crowd all the time, but we're far more accustomed to it than most of the country is. I mean, they were just dumbfounded by the size of the crowd at that Tech Carroll game at that championship. They could not believe the people, how loud it was, the atmosphere. Even when Tech played Sagu down there last year at the national tournament, I mean it felt like a November game. It felt like real early in the year. I mean, there were probably, I don't know, a couple hundred people there. It was, and they were happy. Like, they loved the crowd, but it wasn't anything like what we're used to, especially come tournament time in the Frontier Conference.
Yeah, and that's going to be a great time. I think that tournament time, the conference tournament being up in Great Falls. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I got to figure out how I'm going to make it. That's the only thing.
Some of my best memories are from when it was under one roof here. When it was at the Civic Center, to the Maroon Activity Center.
Yeah.
Some of those, and I could be wrong, and maybe this is just old age speaking, but it always felt like, obviously it's more of a tournament atmosphere, but it felt like there were more upsets, when we were under a single roof than when we're, in the home team. I guess I've been kind of surprised by how receptive all the coaches are to it and how much they all want a single site. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a nice change back to maybe what we know, and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that, part of that anyway, of those games being closer and upset, is those scouting. You can sit there and watch that other team play live.
Yeah. Yep.
What you're not supposed to do in the Frontier. You're not supposed to scout live.
Yeah.
But and I that goes back to having good coaches in the conference, and I think that's a big part of that scenario, Paul, is that those coaches, that they can actually scout that live. So
yeah, no, and hats off to everybody in Great Falls for making it happen. I really never did think we had a chance of getting back under one roof. So not only everybody in Great Falls to make it happen, but it takes an awful lot of sponsors to make it work. And so hats off. If there's people in Great Falls or up there on the High Line that are part of this, that are sponsoring it to make it go, thank you. I mean, it's certainly something I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, and I think Doug Hashley, I think it's a big it's a load. I mean, it's not easy to run a tournament, and fortunately they got pretty good people up there. They run a lot of high school tournaments every year, at the Four Seasons up there. So they're pretty much accustomed to it, how the tournament is to be ran.
Yep.
And when you run one of those things, once the ball goes up, they happen. It's whether you're ready or not or whatever. It's the games are going to go on, the tournament's going to go on, and it becomes fun at that part. But all the prep work, the work that they're having to do now is that's where the work is.
No, it's insane, and it's an incredible amount of work, and I hope everybody understands that. I mean, it's a big deal, and for like I say, for Doug Hashley and company to take that on, we greatly appreciate it, and hopefully we're able to keep it under one roof, and maybe we can get to the point where it'll shift, so it isn't always on Hashley's shoulders and Great Falls' shoulders. Maybe it can be played at the Butte Civic Center, or other locations. And floated around the state a little bit, so everybody can help and different communities can get involved.
Yeah, I think it'd be a great deal.
Yeah,
be a lot of fun. Be a lot of fun, that's for sure.
Agreed.
So what's your take on Saturday for games of the week? Did we go over that?
I don't think we kind of got there. So I kind of like the dichotomy of Western Northern personally. I think Coach Larson and company, they get up and they get after it. They're gonna attack the basket. They're gonna shoot threes all day long. And Coach Hughes is going to pump the brakes until that pedal falls off. I like that's just me. I like watching coaches work, and I think that one will be a fun one in my eyes. Is to see which team can control the tempo in that ball game.
Yeah, I think that'll be huge tempo either way, and Well, I don't know. I think this could come down to a free throw shooting contest at the end, uh, very, very easily. But yeah, I kind of agree. I think that's probably my pick as well for Saturday. I just think that you know I think they're both right there.
Yeah.
And if you look at the overall standings, you know Northern sitting at 12-3 on the years. What I got them at, I've kind of got some contrasting records on Northern. If you go to Presto Sports, they got them 2-1 in conference play. So I don't know how that happened, but
Yeah. They just picked up a random win.
I guess so. I guess so. You know, so that I and Western at 6-9. That's just I just I haven't looked at their schedule or their record that closely to see who they've played and lost to, but I just think they're a lot better than a 6-9
Oh,
record.
yeah. If you're just going to look at wins, losses on a team like Western, you're in trouble. And the same goes, with Providence. And, I mean, Providence on paper is a game under 500. Good luck. Good luck
Yeah,
saying that they're a 500 basketball team
yeah,
with Coach Keller at the helm. I mean, that's laughable. Those two teams, where the problem lies with their records is we always continually talk about if you want to get to the national tournament, you've got to
yeah,
get to 20 wins. So the real problem with teams like that and records where they're at right there is, I mean, you're almost saddling yourself with you've got to win the conference tournament in order to go to the national tournament. So
right.
there's really no back door for them at this point. You're not going to win out, but you better be playing your best basketball at tournament time. And honestly, with the 4 losses for Carroll at Arizona, that has put them in a tough spot too. They sit
Yeah,
at 7-6 overall. And that's one that Coach Paulson obviously is very well aware of. But that's kind of the same boat that they have put themselves in as well.
yeah, and that's the difference between the men and the women's side of thing. You look at the women's bracket, there's 4 teams there with over, 10, 11, and one with 10, 2, 11, and one with 13 wins.
Yeah.
They're over half or over halfway to that 20 already, to where we only have 2 on the men's side, and that kind of shows you and tells you why and how we have that scenario with check my email here real quick, but that at large bid.
Yeah. And that, we talk about these coaches putting themselves in playing against really good teams. There's obviously a lot of good that can come if you're able to knock those teams off on the road. But the downside of that is the losses hurt an awful lot, especially when you stack up several of them in scenarios
Yeah,
like this, where if you're trying to get to the next level, trying to get through, you basically put all your eggs in the we've got to win the conference basket and go from there. And teams are
yeah,
capable of that. I'm not saying they're not capable
oh
of it.
yeah,
That's for sure. But there is nice to have a trap door or a back door to get yourself to the national tournament as well.
oh yeah, yeah. It's definitely a dogfight. It's like I said, they're all in first place, but some people might say they're all in last too. I don't know how you look at that, but I guess
It's a
I
new
guess
year, Bob. We're positive. We're going.
yeah.
Everybody's in first
There we
place.
go. Everybody's in first place. Yeah, yeah. Everybody's right up there with us, Paul. They're in first place. See?
Yeah, we're a long way removed from first place, my friend.
Yeah, I know.
The what do you look forward to for down the line here? Well, it looks like we've got Coach Adam
We
Hyatt
got
joining us.
coach.
So
Yeah, we got Coach Hyatt here. Let's jump. Let's get him in here. Hi, Coach. How you doing?
Hey guys, is my audio okay?
Yep.
Golden,
All
how are
right.
you, man?
Hey, doing great. We just stepped out of practice. I thought I was gonna miss it, but I ended just in time.
Yeah.
We
There you
appreciate your
go.
time. I mean, you're a busy guy. All coaches right now are insanely busy. So we appreciate the time you're able to give us today, man.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
We've been talking an awful lot as far as scheduling, how hard it is to schedule. Montana Tech on the men's side, one of the teams that did not go to the Cactus Classic. Instead, you scheduled a couple games in New Mexico against very good opponents. Talk about that decision first and foremost about scheduling those games in New Mexico rather than Arizona. And let's turn the corner and we'll get into conference after that again.
Yeah, well, we had already gone to Arizona once. It didn't make sense to go down twice. We went down and we wanted to play Arizona Christian on their home floor. They're the current #1 team in the country. They were when we played them as well. We just wanted to see kind of as a barometer game where we stood at that point. There were so many unknowns with our teams coming into the season, just with the number of seniors that we graduated. We were not doubting our talent or our desire. We just were doubting a little bit of our experience. And so the only way that you can gain experience is through failure. And so we just tried to put ourselves in a position where we could challenge ourselves against the best. And so we went down there and played two good teams on their home floors. And so, a big thing that we try to do on a year to year with scheduling is we like to go to different places that our guys maybe have never been to. As I was chatting with our guys in the off season, hey, how many of you have ever been to New Mexico? Not a single hand went up. Nobody's ever been to New Mexico. So I thought it'd be fun to head down there. And we went, I had been to northern New Mexico to play at my previous job before Montana Tech. And we enjoyed our time down there, but I had never been down to Hobbs. And so that was kind of a new experience for us to go down to that part of the country. Definitely oil and gas country, a lot of oil derricks and oil wells everywhere down there. It's flat as can be. I mean, it's basically West Texas, but it's extremely talented team again on their home floor. So it was a really fun experience for us, and we made it an enjoyable trip.
The talk about where you mentioned the idea of the seniors that you graduated. You bring back a lot of guys with a lot of playing time, but obviously a lot of your starters are gone as well. Talk about how that process has come together about getting this team together now, especially for the big run now that we're back into conference full time.
Yeah, right. We had one returning starter in Caleb Belich, and we knew that was a good starting point. But we also had other guys that had played pretty significant minutes. Keely Bake was the sixth man of the year in the league. He was a great contributor for us. Played lots of meaningful minutes. Cam Laurent, same situation. Michael Ure, same situation. So we had a number of these guys. Is that me? Do I got an echo?
I don't have an echo on my side.
Oh, okay. All right. Anyway, and so we just added some new incoming transfers that we're really high on, but we needed to assimilate them into the way that we play. You can't just flip a switch and be dialed in and have chemistry and have connectivity in 1 week or 2 weeks or whatever. I mean, oftentimes it takes an entire semester or often an entire year. In my experience throughout my career, whenever we had junior college transfers, it took even the best of transfers. It took one whole semester for them to get their feet underneath them in order to be able to play at the level that we expect at the four-year university level. And so we brought in three of them. Three junior college transfers that we were expecting a lot from, and so it just took a little bit of time, but we wanted to challenge ourselves as well. I can tell you, going back to the scheduling thing, it's with the NAI reducing the number of games played from 30 to 28, that really impacted a lot of teams. It was difficult because you got to be a lot more selective with where you go, and it's harder to get games sometimes. You're dealing with a lot of conferences that have a lot of teams in them. A lot of conferences in the Midwest, the GSAC, whatever, and so it's a lot more challenging to be able to get those non-conference games because they just don't need as many. They play 22 conference games. They're only looking for 6 out-of-conference games. They're only looking for those games in November, and so once you get to December, you got to be really creative with what you do.
Yeah, and that's something we've talked through the years is one of the hardest things that frontier coaches have to deal with at any sport is trying to get quality opponents, whether you're at home, even more importantly, but even trying to pick a ball on the road is not an easy task at all.
No, not at all. But as we were putting together the framework of our schedule, we knew that we had to play good teams. We were not going to be able to grow as a team if we played substandard teams or teams that we felt like were lower level than us. We had to challenge ourselves and play equal level or higher level teams, whether that's ranking or whatever. And we felt like we put together a really, really challenging schedule with high RPI teams. So hopefully in the long run, it's going to pay off.
Well, now we get back into conference. You've already got 2 games in. Everybody is one on their home floor.
Yep.
Were you surprised by that at all? I mean, the idea that we go through the first 2 games, everybody wins on their home floor. We talk about how good this men's conference is, top to bottom. Were you surprised at all that no one won on the road?
It was a little bit surprising, honestly, that nobody won. That I mean, like occasionally you have one here and there, but the fact that everybody held serve at home was a little bit surprising. But again, it was a small sample size.
Yeah.
You know, I think all the coaches feel the same way coming into league play, that it's really up for grabs. It's a wide open conference. I think non-conference records are irrelevant at this point. It doesn't matter. Everybody's 1-1. Everybody's tied for first or tied for last, depending on how you want to look at it. And
you started with first, so we're going to hold that. We're gonna hold that.
Yeah. And so you know, it's really just gonna, you know, who can protect their home floor the best, and then who can break serve on the road. But it's easier said than done. I just feel like, you know, you can't ever compare year to year, but the last couple of years there's been so much continuity from team to team, from year to year, where there's just a lot of returners back. And so you kind of had that experience in place, and it was a little bit, you had a little bit more advantage if you had an experienced team to be able to go on the road and win, because it takes a lot of experience to win on somebody else's floor. And so we knew that was going to be a challenge for everybody, especially us coming into this season, is being able to go on the road and win those games. It's very challenging. And when you have an inexperienced teams, you go through a 3-minute lull in the middle of the second half, it's going to set you back, and you're not going to have a chance to pull off that game. You know, so we saw that already with us. I mean, we went down to Arizona Christian. We were up 13 midway through the second half, and we had a lull. We had about a 4-minute lull where we just didn't do a whole lot, and we had a couple critical turnovers and gave them a chance to win the game, and they did. And so we lost that true road game, and we lost a game at Western for the kind of similar reasons, except for our lull was in the first half. So it's like those things come with experience, and like I mentioned before, experience comes through failure.
Yeah. The game tomorrow. I'm a day off so bad. But the game tomorrow obviously is one I can't imagine that you have to try and get any energy built up in the locker room. You know, coming off that game a year ago in Helena, there's still so much excitement about that game, winning the Frontier Conference tournament in Helena. Talk about how preparation has come for Carroll College coming to town tomorrow.
Well, they're the preseason favorites. They were picked to win the league. They're tied for first right now. That's, you know, they have our attention. We're ready. We're going to be ready for them. They're you know, every year they're good. They have a lot of good players. They're kind of in a similar situation as us, where they graduated some key players, and they got some new incoming players that they're trying to incorporate into their system. They got great size. They rebound. They defend really well. You know, they got 3 really good players that are scoring at a high level right now. They're going to be a challenge, but you know, I would be quite surprised if our players were not up for this game tomorrow.
Yeah, quite. Give us in your verbiage what makes Montana Tech special this year, and the idea of what does Montana Tech do well this year?
Well, we're very long and very athletic. We put a lot of size on the floor, and it's not size that's immobile. It's a very athletic and versatile size, which enables us to be able to be a pretty solid defensive team, because we can defend multiple players on the floor. But I also feel like on the offensive end, we're very balanced. You know, we may not have the top end that we did a year ago. We may not have a Sindhu Diallo, but we have a lot more quality players, and a lot more, you know, what you would consider a two-way player that can play offense and defense simultaneously good at a high level. So I feel like that's a big strength of our team, and our depth. We have a lot of players, guys that have been in the system for a long time. And now they're just being able to get on the floor and showcase their abilities. But those things have really helped us. Whereas maybe in years past, we haven't had as much size. We've had a lot of individual talent, but we haven't been able to control the boards. We've been a really good rebounding team this year, and we've done a really good job at defending the 3-point line. And we hope that we can continue doing that throughout league play.
You know, and real quickly, and then I'll turn it over to Bob. The 2 things that have really stood out to me through your time at Montana Tech is one, you create tremendous defensive teams, and you mentioned that several times there. It's one of those that if you don't play defense, you don't play for Coach Adam Hyatt. And the other is you keep care of the basketball. I mean, that's all there is to it. And your turnovers are always so incredibly low. You know, and coming into tomorrow's game, you lead the country. You know, 8 turnovers a game is all, and the turnover to assist ratio is just through the roof. Those are 2 incredible calling cards that have been here since day one with your program.
Yeah, I feel like those are two areas that you can control on a year-to-year basis. You can control how hard you defend and how well you prepare, and you can defend how well you take care of the ball. There's other things that are a little bit more uncontrollable. Some of the athletic intangibles or tangibles, depending on how you want to look at that as as well as the ability to shot make, on a year-to-year basis. But those two factors that you just mentioned, those are controllable elements to any team. And it's you are what you emphasize, or on the other hand, you are what you don't emphasize. And we emphasize those things every day: ball security, defense, and we put a lot of time into it. And all of our new guys that came into the system, they were aware of it, because as they were talking with some of our outgoing players about what to expect, they told them you're going to expect a lot of defense every day and a lot of attention to detail, and he's not going to let you turn the ball over. If you can defend and not turn it over, he's going to let you play. You're going to have a lot of freedom, and you're going to have a lot of fun. And so that's kind of the that's kind of our mantra here within our program, and our guys have really bought into it.
Go ahead, Bobby.
Well,
Oh, it
Coach,
looks like
I brought it up earlier that I think the men's side of the conference is probably as even this year at this point than we have been in several years. Just top to bottom, I think we're pretty even keel this year.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, if a year ago, it seemed like we were divided into maybe some different tiers, where a couple teams in the top tier and then a middle and a lower tier. And this year, it feels like we're all the same tier. I completely agree with that. That's why I said the non-conference records are irrelevant. It doesn't matter what anybody did in the non-conference. We're all 1-1. And as I have briefly, we're pretty familiar with Rocky and Western because we have already played them, and now with Carroll coming up. But the other two teams we have seen, and we have a little bit of a feel for them, but we'll have more as we prepare for them. But just from what I've seen, it is the parity is incredible this year. I honestly believe that it is any team's year to break through and win. I mean, we could break through and win it again, or we could finish last. I mean, it's really that close.
yeah. The
No.
and it really is going to come down to the idea of who's at your place twice. The idea of playing everybody 3 times. You're in somebody's gym twice, or you're at home twice against some opponents, and that's going to play a big factor.
Boy, that unbalanced schedule is a major it's a major curveball. No question about it. I don't think that teams and coaches outside of our region or outside of our conference understand that we refer to it as a gauntlet, because it is a gauntlet of games where not only do you have to play everybody 3 times, but as you mentioned, it's an unbalanced schedule. I mean, last year we played at Carroll 3 times throughout the course of the season. I mean, that is incredibly difficult to do. This year we got some teams down here twice. We have to go on the road to some places twice. That those are big factors, and throughout that gauntlet, you just never know what players on your team are going to be sick, or they're going to be healthy. Are you going to catch a team at a hot streak or on a cold streak? There's so many unknowns. It's what makes it really fun. It's a little nerve-wracking for us coaches, as you're trying to prepare your teams, but I really believe that the players enjoy it. Obviously, we hope that someday we grow our conference and we get more teams in it, and we can play just a double round robin, a home and away schedule. That'd be amazing. But for the time being, we're gonna embrace the challenge that we have in front of us. One thing that we're really looking forward to this year is the neutral site Frontier Conference tournament. That's going to be really fun. It's exciting. That was kind of my contention personally, and it was shared by some other coaches within the conference, that once we got to the playoffs, it just felt like it was a fourth round of league. I mean, like I said, we had to go to Carroll 3 times, and it's like, oh, here we go again. And the Carroll Tech is unique because it is such a strong, intense rivalry. But if it's another team that's involved in that scenario, it's just from a fan standpoint and from a player engagement standpoint, it's just, oh, here we go again. We got to go back to Billings or whatever it might be. So this is kind of fun that we get to go to Great Falls. We get to turn the clock back. It's a neutral site. Everyone's under the same roof, men's and women's. It's going to be exciting. So I'm hopeful that it's well received by the community of Great Falls, and that we're able to travel folks up from Butte and the other college communities in the state. We can have a good turnout. It can be a very fun event, and then we can continue to do this on a year-to-year basis.
Yeah, completely agree. Bob, do you have anything? I know Adam's time is short. Do you have anything?
Yeah, I know. I just want to say, Coach, it's just great to have you back in the conference. When you were at Westminster, always enjoyed your teams down there, and it's good to have you back. You're a great addition to a great bunch of coaches that we have here, and it just seems like there's no surprises of how good the Frontier is every year, year in and year out. And want to thank you for your time and today, and I'm sure we'll talk to you again before the season's over. And good luck.
I appreciate that. Just real quick before I let you guys go. I mean, when I was a young player, back in 1997, 98. So I graduated high school in 1997, and I went down and I played at a junior college in southern Idaho. It was called Rick's College at the time. It's now referred to as BYU Idaho, and no longer has athletics, which is a shame because it was one of the best junior college programs in the whole country. But beginning that year, we would every year play Montana Western, a home and away. We would go up to Dillon, and then they would come down to Rexburg and play. And that was kind of my first exposure to the Frontier Conference way back in 1997. And then, fast forward a few years, I was a player in the league at Westminster, and then I was able to coach in the league as an assistant and then a head coach now for a long time. And so I've kind of had my foot into the Frontier Conference door since 1997, so to speak. And it's been an amazing journey. And I really couldn't have asked for more of a fulfilling career, both as a player and as a coach, than to be in the Frontier. Such amazing coaches and home venues and supporters, and you really just grow immensely as a player and coach. So I look back at my career, and I credit a lot of my own personal individual growth to my experience being here in the Frontier.
Well, Coach, again, we appreciate your time greatly, and certainly look forward to game time tomorrow.
All right, guys, appreciate you.
All
We'll
right.
see you.
Thanks, Coach. Take care, man.
Thanks.
Coach Adam Hyatt, ladies and gentlemen, Montana Tech basketball, and I think I should have asked him. I think he is probably one of the few that both played in the Frontier Conference tournament and in a single site, and also coached in it, because I believe he would have played in it when we were under one roof. And I think, like I say, he was an assistant immediately after. So he certainly, has the memory of what that was like, getting everybody under one roof. So it's going to be a good year.
Yeah, you're probably better at that because I can't even remember where the tournament was last year. So.
Well, see, Bob, no.
No, it's just great to see one thing that I think is overlooked. We talk about the coaching X's and O's and all that with our coaches, but the energy that our men's coaches have. I'll tell you what, I mean, I think we ought to we have a basketball game, and then we have another event. I don't know what we would call it, and we put a camera on each head coach.
Oh, that'd be a rip. Like, all of them are just, there isn't one of them I don't like talking to. I mean, and that's,
it'd be fun.
Like, it'd be a rip. I mean, they're just good people. I mean, again, I think that comes back to who we are and what we are in the Frontier Conference. But man, you look at all these coaches, and yes, again, we're partial, very partial. But that said, like, there is not one of these kids or one of these coaches that I wouldn't be ecstatic if my kid was to go and be a part of their life for 5 or 6 years, whatever it would be.
Right. Right.
I would be beyond honored. I mean, because these coaches are parents to these kids, more so than the parents are for those years. So they learn an awful lot from these coaches. And I'll tell you, I don't care if it's Adam. I don't care if it's Coach Sayers that was supposed to be on with us earlier. To Moe, to Jeff Graham, to Woolley, to any of them. They're all just people that I really look up to.
Yeah, no, that would be kind of exciting to do that, but we'd probably better not try it.
But yeah, especially because JT'd probably be around, John Thatcher would probably be around, and there isn't enough of an edit button in the world.
We would definitely not want audio.
Yeah,
it would have to be video only. So no, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
What else you got, Paul? Anything?
I don't think so. I'm excited. I'm excited to get back into games and back into gyms, and hopefully people will get out and support these schools, and we'll get ready for what should be some great basketball this weekend. Tomorrow, 3 games on Saturday. Remember, the Saturday games are early, 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. 5 and 7 tomorrow, and that's the tail of the tape, man.
Are you actually going to work this week?
I'm actually going to work. I get to do Tech Carroll.
There you go.
There is very little in this world I'd rather do than Tech Carroll doing anything.
No, well, I get to do Rocky Carol, so that'll be fun too. So,
There you go.
but no, it's gonna be a great weekend of basketball to kick off the string of conference games, and
Yeah.
like you said, get it for people, especially, you know, I think the Saturday games in the afternoon are good. People can get out
Yeah.
and
Yep.
watch them. We were a little concerned here in Billings because the high schools play. Some of them play early sometimes, but it didn't seem to. I didn't think it hurt our crowds last year. You know, sitting there watching. There were some people that
Neither.
watched some games and got up and left. A few people, and I know that they were going to high school games. But I think overall, I think it was a good deal.
The only downside I see to it, Bob, is from a broadcasting perspective. Sometimes, trying to get games on the air is hard when they're all playing at the same time on Saturday. And again, that's just trying to make everybody happy. I guess that's all, and that's the only downside. Otherwise, I like the afternoon games. I'm looking forward to Saturday. Steve Keller hasn't swore at me in a long time, so I'm looking to get that remedied.
I can probably remedy that for you. I can send him a text. Well, with that, Paul, why don't you wrap us up for today, and we'll see everybody next week.
Well, again, we appreciate your time. The Montana Sportscast webcast for Bob Ritterott. I'm Paul Panisco. Have a good one, and we'll talk to you next week. Take care.